Now that we've talked about the news factors, let's talk about the attention levels. So, there are different reasons for consuming news. The first one is information search. This is where people purposefully seek specific information. So, if I'm interested in what's going on with Sean Combs or Diddy's trial right now and I look up that information, that would be information searching. The next one is information scanning. This is not purposefully seeking specific information, but voluntarily consuming the news. So I might be listening to my morning podcast and the information about Sean Combs's trial comes on, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was happening, but I'm going to listen to it anyway. And then incidental information exposure. This is accidentally encountering news while performing other actions. So you might be at a doctor's office or you might be scrolling on your social media and then like you hear in the background information about Diddy's trial come on the news or it might pop up on your screen. So you accidentally encountered this news while you're doing something else. And then information avoidance is where we purposefully avoid the news. Like if the news is on, we ask the receptionist in the lobby to turn it to a different channel, or we actively click, "Don't show me this stuff on our social media anymore." Things like that. All right, I gave you examples of each, so I'm not going to go further into that. A formal presentation and how it affects attention levels. So formal presentation is where the news can add to emotional appeal and trigger automatic attention to the news. So this is like if you see breaking headlines, they're trying to get your attention. So if you're doing that, if it's an incidental information exposure thing, then you're going to pay attention because it's like, this just in, breaking, high tense music, whatever it is, it draws consumers in to try to grab their attention. All right, how do I determine what news is useful? Information utility. Magnitude, this is events of great consequence. So mass firings and layoffs that impact tens of thousands of families might be events of great consequence, right? Likelihood, how likely, if there's a high chance an event will impact recipients. So wildfires in LA versus wildfires in Virginia would determine who's going to tune into those or going to see those news stories with informational utility. Immediacy, this is the timeliness of events. So coverage of 9/11 right after it happened versus coverage of 9/11 looking back now. And we usually see this every year as like an anniversary. We'll have some news story about that. In terms of informational utility, those things are interesting to listen to, but if you're already overstimulated or you have information overload, you can tell by the immediacy of it if you need to tune in, or you can like let it go. Not let it go, but not tune in, right? And then efficacy, beliefs about whether or not viewers can change the course of an issue. So this example, my vote doesn't matter that much anyway. That sentiment keeps us from paying attention to politically consequential news. So if we don't believe we can do anything about it, then we'll find lower informational utility about those stories. Okay, I'm not saying your vote doesn't matter anyway. I'm saying that that's partially one of the reasons that we have low political engagement, right? And that's problematic. So this is me saying that your vote does matter anyway. All right. Let's talk about what an attitude is and talk about attitude importance. Attitudes are subjective evaluations of objects, people, or events. So we think of this as either positive or neutral or negative. We can have attitudes that are positive, neutral, or negative. And then attitude importance is the value an individual attaches to a specific attitude. So you might have a strong attitude, positive attitude about political engagement and voting behaviors. While your best friend might have a strong negative attitude about political engagement, right? Okay, just a little bit more and then we're going to be done with this section. Attitude importance will increase when the topic pertains to one's own status, health, or opportunities. This is self-interest. A topic is related to one's own norms and morals. This revolves around values. And if a topic is related to one's own affiliations with others, this is our groups. So with these, just a little example here, and just to tell you a little bit about like values. Values are deeply ingrained in our core. So if we see news related to those deep roots, we're definitely going to have a stronger attitude about those things. If you think about the groups that we're affiliated with, and there's some evidence to back this up with in terms of reproductive health care. If you are someone who's less impacted or you don't fall within an affected group, then that might mean your attitude importance is lower than those who are directly impacted by those stories. News stories, I mean, or policy decisions. So, but we generally see connections if we have, if I have a good relationship with my sister, who is impacted by reproductive health care access, right? Then that's going to increase my attitude importance about that topic, about that issue, right? If I am also impacted by those news stories, self-interest, then that will likely increase my attitude importance as well. All right, we talked about changes to news and attention to news, and we're going to keep moving. We're almost done with this unit 5.